It's 8 p.m. and here are our top stories in 90 seconds.
After months and months of cases going down, we're seeing a spike in COVID cases. They're going up. Why? Because of this new form, this new variant called the Delta variant.
With COVID cases rising, President Biden is hoping to turn things around and get America back on track.
So today, I'm calling on all states and local governments to use funding they have received, including from the American Rescue Plan, to give $100 to anyone who gets fully vaccinated.
But how is Colorado stacking up? The state is encouraging mask mandates, but has yet to enforce anything. Many counties are what is considered a high-risk area, and that's forcing some businesses to take things into their own hands.
In regard to mandates, absolutely, we've been considering it and trying to push for it through the health department and the governor's office.
Plus, the creative duo behind South Park are hoping to buy the iconic Casa Bonita, but the restaurant's owners say they haven't heard anything about it.
I have not been contacted by South Park or any of their representatives. So other than what I have heard, I know nothing about that proposal.
The restaurant is also ready to rebound and planning to open its doors in the coming weeks.
Once we finish the repairs and get some final permits, our plan at this point in time, we would expect it will be reopened by the 1st of September, if not earlier.
Good Thursday evening, and thank you for watching Denver7 News on Local 3. I'm Jessica Porter. We start out tonight with the alarming rise in coronavirus cases in the U.S. To help slow the spread, President Biden announcing today that all federal employees will be required to get the vaccine. He also called on state leaders to give $100 to anyone who gets the shot. ABC's Morgan Norwood has the latest from Los Angeles.
With an alarming summer surge fueled by the more contagious Delta variant, President Joe Biden putting the pressure on nearly 4 million federal workers to get vaccinated or follow strict testing protocols.
Every federal government employee will be asked to attest to their vaccination status. Anyone who does not attest or is not vaccinated will be required to mask no matter where they work.
Biden pressed about his statement back in May where he announced that vaccinated Americans no longer needed to wear masks.
That is true at the time, because I thought there were people who were going to understand that getting vaccinated made a gigantic difference. And what happened was, a new variant came along, they didn't get vaccinated, it was spread more rapidly, and more people were getting sick. That's the difference.
While vaccinations are up 18% within the past week, the U.S. still averaging nearly 62,000 new cases per day. Major companies like Facebook, Google, and Netflix all taking action, announcing they will require most employees to be vaccinated. The mandates and policy updates come after CDC guidance recommending masks for everyone in areas with substantial or high transmission of COVID-19. Governors in Mississippi and Texas pushing back against the recommendations, questioning the science.
It reeks of political panic.
Which is it? Vaccines or masks?
For Frederick Tabayan, it's now a clear choice. The 45-year-old spent days in the hospital with COVID and wishes he got the vaccine sooner.
If I was educated like that from the beginning, I probably would have took a vaccination earlier.
Morgan Norwood, ABC News, Los Angeles.
New data from Pfizer shows a third dose of its COVID-19 vaccine can strongly boost protection against the Delta variant. Pfizer now plans to apply for emergency use authorization for a third dose of its shot as soon as August. The company says data shows after 6 months, their vaccine's efficacy against COVID dropped from 96% to 84%. But the U.S. Surgeon General is cautioning anyone thinking about getting a booster shot. The government is in talks with Pfizer about the vaccine maker's studies on boosters, but says the decision will not be made by the company. Rather, it'll be made by the CDC and the FDA.
Ultimately, that collective information is what will drive any decision about boosters. But right now, a routine booster is not being recommended for people.
In order for third doses to be administered to people in the U.S., the emergency use authorization that the FDA issued for the vaccine would either need to be amended, or if the vaccine were FDA approved, a third dose could be given off-label. So we've heard the CDC's guidance, wear a mask indoors if you live in an area with high transmission rates. And when it comes to Colorado, under that CDC guidance, about 2/3 of our state counties should be reinstating mask policies. But will those mask policies come back? We reached out to local health departments across the state. The ones that responded say they are reviewing those CDC recommendations, but none committed to another round of mandates just yet. The governor's office says they have reached out to the CDC to learn more about the science behind the changes. At the Highland Community Care Center, the chief medical officer says they never stopped wearing masks and will take even stricter precautions.
In regard to mandates, absolutely, we would consider it. We've been considering it and trying to push for it through the health department and the governor's office.
Every unvaccinated employee must take a COVID test every day before starting their shift. More than 1,000 cases of COVID were confirmed in Colorado today. 368 people are in the hospital tonight with suspected or confirmed cases of coronavirus. Based on recent figures from the state, we can strongly assume that roughly 95% of them were unvaccinated. Another 12 deaths were confirmed to be caused by coronavirus today. Recent numbers suggest between 93 and 97% were unvaccinated. Dr. Mei Chu is a professor of epidemiology with the Colorado School of Public Health. Today we asked her about her reaction to these numbers.
What we get distressed at is to see how many people have been lost and how many lives have been lost. I'm very sensitive to that. And I also feel like there are things that we should do that we're not. However, people who don't take the vaccine don't often, I've talked to any number of them, and I just go up the street and I just ask them, tell me about it. I want to hear what your reasons are. And I'm not trying to convince you to take it, but I want to learn why. And for a lot of them, they're just thinking about themselves. They're not really, at least the people I've talked to, they say, well, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't, I'm not the one you need to talk. You need to talk to that person.
3.3 million of the 5.7 million people living in Colorado have received at least one dose of the vaccine. 3 million are considered fully vaccinated. You can see the transmission rates in your county on an interactive map we've posted online. Head on over to the denverchannel.com or watch our complete coverage on the free Denver7 Plus app for your streaming device. Well, we first told you yesterday that the creators of South Park want to buy Casa Bonita. Now we're hearing from the restaurant itself, and the company that owns it says it's not for sale. In fact, as Denver7's Addie Guajardo tells us, they say Casa Bonita is fully staffed and ready to reopen.
In less than 5 weeks, the iconic Casa Bonita, home of the margaritas, sopapillas, and live entertainment, plans to open its doors.
Once we finish the repairs and get some final permits, our plan at this point in time, we would expect that it will be reopened by the 1st of September, if not earlier.
More than a year ago, the restaurant shut down.
We're closed down because the regulations didn't permit the business to operate. And then it was during the closure that we sustained some infrastructure issues.
Robert Wheaton, the CEO of Summit Family Restaurants, says it's been a challenge finding people to make about half a dozen repairs needed to reopen the restaurant. Back in April, Summit Family Restaurants, the owners, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in Arizona.
The bankruptcy was due to an inability to reach an accord with the landlord.
Superfans launched a campaign raising more than $67,000 to save the iconic landmark.
Those efforts are independent of our plan to reopen.
Oh, awesome! And recently, the creators of South Park made headlines announcing that they wanted to become the new owners.
I have not been contacted by South Park or any of their representatives.
Wheatson says he found out after being contacted by Denver7.
I know nothing about that proposal.
Oh, awesome! He says while the South Park creators would be wonderful buyers, the popular restaurant is not for sale.
We have the financing in place.
In May, the arcade and the gift shop reopened, and the owners launched backstage tours.
On many days, between 200 and 400 guests will come in and do the backstage tours where we take them all through the restaurant.
He says kitchen staff is now gearing up to reopen.
Our kitchen crew has been busy going back and refreshing their memories of all the recipes that we have.
So what can you expect on your next visit?
Nothing is going to change.
The same magic people have felt for decades. Addie Guajardo, Denver7.
A lot of people can't wait for it to come back. Thank you, Addie. Well, this Vista Peak preparatory teacher is in jail, facing charges of numerous counts of sexual conduct with a minor and sexual abuse of a minor. Vista Peak Prep is in Aurora, but we learned today Mark Lindrad worked as a teacher in the Denver Metro for 20 years. He was arrested in Arizona today. Authorities there allege the abuse happened while he was a high school teacher in Arizona in the early 2000s. The Aurora police officer seen beating an unarmed man last Friday has resigned. The move saves the department the trouble of firing him following the conclusion of an internal affairs investigation. Haubert is charged with second-degree assault, felony menacing, and first-degree official misconduct. His colleague, Francine Martinez, is charged with failure to intervene. She remains employed by the police department pending a review. A former Colorado judge will spend at least 1 year in prison. Ryan Kamada pleaded guilty to obstructing a federal investigation into a cocaine trafficking organization. The DA says that while still a judge, a federal officer called him to secure a search warrant for one of the suspects. He then called a friend who knew the suspect, telling him about the warrant. Kamada was a district court judge in the 19th Judicial District. Manitou Springs police arrested this man who they say is accused of vandalizing more than 50 graves and monuments at the Crystal Valley Cemetery. Landon Johnston was taken into custody on July 2nd thanks to a tip from the public. Back in May, dozens of monuments and gravestones were toppled over and damaged. Police believe more people were involved and are still investigating.
I want to commend the group of senators who worked with President Biden to reach an agreement on a bipartisan infrastructure bill.
A bipartisan infrastructure bill passes the Senate, but it's not heading to the president's desk yet. Why it could be threatened by a companion bill put forward by Democrats.
This is something that happens on roads that go through these technically challenging places, and I think the more we can have a drumbeat for how it works when it happens, the better it is for people to prepare to deal with it.
Plus, get ready for more closures on I-70. Why CDOT is saying they could become more frequent in the future.